We go to Psalms chapter 92, verse 12. Blessed be the word of God in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will grow like a cedar of Lebanon. Planted in the house of the Lord, they will flourish in the courts of our God. What a beautiful Bible verse. And I want you to accompany me this moment as we, elevate a prayer to our God, because that right there is very important that we can gather together. Father God, we give thanks to you this morning because you have been pleased in giving us this opportunity to come to your house of worship, to be able to stream this service to you live, so that many lives and many people can be blessed by you with your word, that you can be pleased, Lord, in receiving our worship to you, our praise, that the word is going to be spoken, Heavenly Father, that it may give, freedom to those who are fallen, who are downcast. We give thanks to you, my God, in your holy name, God. We honor and we praise your holy name. Blessed be your name, God. God bless you. And as you are connected right now, please make sure to share your YouTube page, your Facebook page, so that more people can connect right now.
Podré escapar el poder de tu amor. No puedo deshacer lo que hiciste en la cruz. Vienes corriendo, los muros caerán. Mientras tú me dices, eres digno, mi amor. Dios, me persigues con poder y gloria, amor imparable, sin final, incomparable, tu pasión y gracia, amor imparable, sin final. Try to stop your love, and you would wage a war. Try to take the very thing you gave your life for. You would come running and tear down every wall. All the while you're shouting, my love, you're worth it all. And God, you pursue me with power and glory, unstoppable love that never ends. And you're unrelenting with passion and mercy, unstoppable love that never ends. Dios, me persigues con poder y gloria, amor imparable, sin final, incomparable, tu pasión y gracia, amor imparable, sin final. No hay dolor, no hay mal, no hay oscuridad que pueda separarme de ti. No hay profundidad, muerte o temor que pueda separarme de ti. No hay dolor, no hay mal, no hay oscuridad que pueda separarme de ti. No hay profundidad, muerte o temor que pueda separarme de ti. And no sin, no shame, no past, no pain can separate me from your love. No height, no depth, no fear, no death can separate me from your love. And no sin, no shame, no past, no pain can separate me from your love. And no height, no depth, no fear, no death can separate me from your love. God, you pursue me with power and glory, unstoppable love that never ends. You're unrelenting with passion and mercy, unstoppable love that never ends. Dios, me persigues con poder y gloria, amor imparable sin final, incomparable tu pasión y gracia, amor imparable sin final.
Oh, praise the living God. Good morning, this beautiful day, on this Sunday. We are so anxious to be able to, right there, to be gathered together again one day. But as we find ourselves in our homes, gathered together, and I see that you are hearing us, and you will be hearing God's message. We want to tell you, thank you so much for joining us live week by week. Every single service as you have joined us and supported our ministry, and to hear God's beautiful word. Today we have a word of encouragement, a word of reflection, and I want to thank once again all the personnel that is working arduously um, all these days, and I always want to mention them. I'll say, but my assistant, co-pastor, brother Edgar, um, parents Robert, Roberto Rivera, Carlos Luis Perez, and Sammy, brother Clyde, sister Nelsa, which doing fighting very hard, working very hard every single day to give the people of God the best we have. And we know that we have that feeling that soon we will see you here. And as you know, we're gonna be here soon. That's my faith. We're gonna be here worshiping God, jumping, praising God, doing a praise thing for God. And I know that we're so, we have that hunger to come back to church, right? Hear this word from God. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah 18, verse 6. Jeremiah 18:6. And I'm going to get a little bit away from adversity and all that. And I want to talk to you about something very important. I pray that you are gathered together with your family. Kids, be together, united with your family. Get your Bibles quickly. Your Bibles as you have it there. As you read the Word of God. Don't run. Don't run. Take a little moment. Go get your Bibles. If you forgot it, you don't have it with you. I'm gonna get you a few seconds for you to, listen. Jeremiah 18:6. And the In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit of God. The potter's hand, O house of Israel, as you are in the potter's, like clay in the hand of the potter, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel. Once again, like clay in the hand of the potter, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel. God bless you. I believe that this moment we're going through, and I'm gonna, identify it in this manner. We're going through a time of brokenness, a time where you have to be useful so that God can use you, to the maximum. It is a requisite from God so that we are useful for God. And I'm certain that God wants to mold us, and God wants to form us as a beautiful creation that is indescribable. The process, it is not a quick process, or it doesn't feel pleasant all the time. However, we are able to trust that the potter's hand will finish what he has begun in our lives. I'm very certain of that. And with high frequency or very frequently, as Christians, we battle with trying to what we perceive to be the summit or the peak of success. And we then, we then write out or display a great list of successes to be able to one day present them to God and tell the Lord God, God, look at everything that I did for you. However, in spite of all of that, despite all of that, there's always, however, all of this, God is not based on what we had done or our deeds. He receives us based on what Christ did at the cross. As Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 and verse 9, the Word of God says that by grace I am saved through faith. That is not of us, but it is a gift of God. And I want you to hear this. It's not because of your actions or your deeds, so that no one can boast, but it is because of this reason that instructs us to stop depending on our own accomplishments and for us to support ourselves on Him or depend on Him or lean on Him. Fix your eyes, your heart on God in all your heart, and do not, rely on your own wisdom. And who will strengthen up your ways? How tremendous is that? And this is something that is not applicable only for salvation, but it is something that is applicable to all the aspects of our life. So the Lord asks us, He calls us to repent from our sinful actions or habits, for our corrupted ways, for our self-reliance, and so that we can truly say and display to God and demonstrate to God that everything that I have is of God's. Everything that I have belongs to God. That I belong to God. That He is everything that matters for me. And I want to repeat again. The Lord calls us to repent from our sinful ways and our self-sufficiency, and for seeking our own desires, arrogant ways, so we can honestly say everything that I am. And say with me today, everything that I am and everything that I have belongs to God. God is in me and I am in God. He is everything that matters. And I want to define a little bit what is the meaning of brokenness. And this is something to know, a definition that we can all be in accordance with. For me, brokenness is the beginning of revival. I want you to hear this. It is the beginning of revival. It is unpleasant. It is a painful experience. And it's humbling. But I want to tell you something. That God wants to reveal His presence and His grace to His people. That God wants to take our hearts, our homes, our churches, our ministries, and to fill them with His love and His Spirit. God wants to fill us up, people. God wants to pour out His Spirit in our hearts. God wants to pour out His Spirit in our homes because the presence of God is so needed today. In the churches, we need the presence of God that God wants to pour out into our lives, His grace into our lives. And we are so thirsty, and we have thirst and hunger and drought in our lives. God wants to restore His first love in Jesus, and for us to be renewed the strength in our hearts. Do you remember when you first started in the way of the Lord? How your heart was burning, how your heart was filled with that fire. There was no excuse, to come to God's house, and you wanted to, to come and to manifest and demonstrate what you felt in your heart, because inside of you there was a burning desire, devotion in your life to God. So in your life, God wants to bring reconciliation for the broken relationships, and He wants to reconstruct or rebuild those areas of your lives that have been broken. And in other words, God wants to revive our hearts, and everything begins with a brokenness in their lives. And many times, we converse with people, we speak to people about the life of our Lord, but we have hearts that are broken, we have hearts that are empty, and many people don't feel the presence of God because one of the things that God's people have lost is the first love. We have lost as a people of God is the devotion, the desire for attending church, for coming to God's house. And let me tell you this, that in brokenness, the necessary requisite for revival in our hearts, we need to be broken in order for us to feel the presence of God in our lives. We all want to feel the presence of God in our lives, of course, but we need to see what the Word of God tells us about this situation of brokenness. What type of people does God abide in? So we need to see that what Scripture so that the one who lives forever, He abides in the most high place and humbled in spirit, to relive the spirits of those who are humble and to relive the hearts of those who are in dismay. What type of people does God abide in? And God abides in the most high and the most holy, but He abides in the heart that is contrite, to be able to relive the hearts of those who are. Isaiah 57 verse 15. And the psalmist says in Psalm 51, the sacrifices of God are all a spirit that's contrite, and a heart that is contrite and humbled, O God, you will never reject. That is the environment where the psalmist understood that he can find himself in brokenness. And when Jesus, pronounces and speaks about the Sermon on the Mount, about the blessings, the first ones who blessed are the poor in spirit. That's the first thing that Jesus Christ is going to present. Blessed are the poor in spirit, because the poor in spirit is the one who doesn't have hope, that does not have any hope. And the intervention of God, and this is in Matthew chapter 5 verse 3, blessed are the poor in spirit, the one who was hopeless of being able to a provision of having the need, and in their own necessity and their own need takes us to Him. The need of being poor in the spirit, guides us or takes us to depend on God. And we need to understand that in order for us to grow closer to God, we need to humble ourselves before God and before man, right? And I gotta say this again, I gotta repeat this again, because at times we don't understand. We want the presence of God, but our hearts are putrid. Our hearts are rotten. And we need to understand that in order for us to grow closer to God, we need to humble ourselves before God, before man. And many Christians call themselves Christians, but they have a vocabulary and they have a heart that is apart from God. They're only superficial Christians, but they truly don't have a heart that is humble and contrite before God. And I believe that God is speaking to me and God is speaking to people out there right now. I believe that God is trying to get our attention, right? I believe that God is calling us. I believe that God wants you to let go of your pride, to let go of your arrogance. That God wants you to get rid of that attitude in your life. He wants it to be transformed. I believe that God wants something from you. But the problem is that you don't want God to work with you. You are in the spirit of self-righteousness, saying that I'm good, then I'm all good. But let me tell you something. God is the one who studies the heart. God is the one who examines the heart. Then how can we, in brokenness, is a way to live constantly with respect to the true condition of our heart and our lives. So, and it may be that you may not have caught that right there, but do not turn off your phone. Do not stop. We ain't done yet. We still got a little bit left, the Word of God. So, brokenness is a decision. Brokenness is a way to live constantly and permanently in agreement with God. And at times we want to hear what we want to hear. We don't want to hear what God wants to say about us. Okay? And at times we want God to speak to us in this way, but when God confronts us with His Word, we don't like that. We don't like that. We like to hear about God is love all the time. And let me tell you something, God is breaking down people, not only Christians, but all the nations God is breaking down, so that they may know that there is only one God, that is the Lord of hosts. It is a decision. It is a way to live constantly with respect to the true condition of our hearts and our lives. It is to get rid of the trust in oneself and to renounce the life independently from God. That is what brokenness does. That's what brokenness is. To dispose ourselves of that, trust in oneself. And let me tell you, let's hope that we all can do that. Paul said that I can do everything through Christ who strengthens me. He didn't say everything I can do in Paul. No, he said everything I can do in Christ. He is the one who strengthens me. So we need to get rid of that trust in ourselves and to be able to live a life dependent on God, independence in God. A heart that is contrite, that is a heart that is broken, allows us to be molded in God's hands and is not like a clay that is hardened and unmanageable. So I want to repeat this again. The heart that is contrite, a heart that is broken, is allowed to be managed in God's hands and is not hardened before the circumstances that God uses to form that person. A life that is broken is honest. A person that is broken is transparent. A person is humble before God, and humble before, I gotta say this word again, that's a good word right here. Because a person that is broken is honest, does not deceive, it's not betraying, it's not dishonest, it's transparent, it's humble before God and before other people. The blessings come through that brokenness in our lives. So then, the question here is this. There is something that God is extracting from your life. There is something right now that God is removing from your life. That's the question. Is there something that you trust Him more in than in God? I gotta say this again, this question. Is there something right now in your life that God is removing from your life? And you don't realize, perhaps because the spirit of self justification and righteousness does not allow you to see what God is working or operating in your life today. Do you know what God is doing in your life? Listen, Saint Augustine. Saint Augustine, he was a philosopher. He expressed these words: "The tears are the blood of the soul." I'm gonna repeat this again. A bishop, and Saint Augustine, a bishop and philosopher, he said that the tears are the blood of the soul. That the tears are the blood of the soul, and the work of the Spirit is to break down our ego and our own will so that we can reflect Jesus Christ. I gotta say that word again. And that doesn't mean that, and I need to clarify this point. That doesn't mean that anybody who has gone through, only the people who have gone and been touched by this virus and gone to this epidemic, that they are the only ones that have been breaking down. And don't think that you think that you're self-righteous, and you don't think that God's eyes are fixed upon you. But let me tell you something: you cannot be too arrogant, because if you live that way, then sooner or later you're gonna get what you deserve. You gotta be careful. You gotta be humble. Do not point yourself, because God is seeing the condition of our hearts, right? Our life is like a grain of wheat, right? It is like a hard shell that protects and encloses life in it. A shell in a seed that protects life, so that life can come out and sprout. Then the shell has to be broken, so the life can be shown in their life. That our home needs to be broken. We need to be broken down. We need to be broken into pieces. And that way, life can come forward to give life to other people. I gotta say this again, because perhaps you were not able to, you didn't capture that. Our life is like a grain of wheat, is a seed, hard shell, which encapsulates life so that life can come out. That shell needs to be broken, needs to be ruptured, needs to be broken down to pieces, and then life can flow out to give life to other places. And Jesus, our Lord, He spoke to us about this. Surely, surely, verily, verily, I tell you, that the grain of wheat that falls on the ground does not die, but it takes many fruit. There are many people who wants life, but God wants death, because through that, God knows that we can resurrect again, and we're able to give life to other people. We need to die. Death to that which is me, the ego, the selfishness, so that we can be people, that we can witness to other people, that we can give good testimony. We can be the light, we can be the seasoning in this world. And this world that is frustrated, because of this situation that we are experiencing, and we as Christians need to give a good example to the people out there. We're not doing that. Do you know why? Because the shell of our life has not been broken, has not been removed, because arrogance is the shell that does not, allow you to grow, because it is the arrogance that does not allow you to grow. The ego, that me, does not let you grow. Let us be careful, church, friends and family. Maurice Mirolich, and please forgive me if I cannot pronounce his name, but at times does not give us to choose between tears and laughter, but only at times we only have to choose with tears only. So we need to choose what is more beautiful, tears or laughter. So I want to tell you this in very brief words. Victor Hugo in 1802, in 1855, the eye sees God good through tears. And I'm going to say this again. The eye sees God well only through tears. Wow, how tremendous that through brokenness it is that you and I can see God. It is through suffering that we are humble. When we are humble, then we are able to see God. So God is the artisan. He has his own tools to be able to take us to that brokenness and then to be able to easily mold us. There are some tools that God has, you know, that he's able to accomplish this. The first tool that God uses, and God speaks to us through the whispering. He whispers to us into the human heart. And at times we feel that word, that eternal word, that whisper in our ear, how God speaks to us. And God speaks to lives in that way. It is a very tender, loving voice that we can feel, that pleasant voice that comes to our heart to tell us, we are in a time of brokenness and we feel God's voice. And instead of us applying to ourselves what God is trying to tell us, we try to demonstrate it to other people. We want to reveal it to other people. And when God speaks to you, it's to you first. You are the one that needs to be broken down. God is speaking to you. He's not speaking to someone else. I want you to hear this. And when we are so busy in our lives, right? We are busy in our own projects. We have dreams and we have ambitions, and we don't hear God's voice. We don't want to hear his voice, right? And the second tool, that after we don't listen to God's whisper or God speaking into our hearts eternally, God uses his word, speakers, preachers that speak his word as it is. The word of God says, for the word of God it's a living word. It is more powerful cutting than a double-edged sword, and penetrates to break it into the soul and all the joints and ligaments, and discerns the heart and intentions of the heart. And at times we want to calm people down, we want to pat people in the back that God is with you. But let me tell you something. Until you and I are not broken down, we're not going to feel God's presence in our lives as if we want to feel it. Praise God for that. How many say amen? So in order for God to break us down, he uses his word through verses in scripture that we may know that God is speaking to us directly. So God awaits for us to let go of ourselves, to us to pour ourselves out into him, so that we may then depend on him. And then let me tell you that God uses tools that, at times he may use a friend, he may use a family member, and that friend may tell you about the condition, whether you even tell him about it, but he knows what we're going through. He knows how we are, we're all over the place. We're not, firmly standing in God. And we don't like people to tell us anything. And God sends us a word through a friend. God sends us a word through a child or a minister, and say, hey, look at this, look at that. And a lot of the times we don't want to hear it out. We don't want to hear it out. We don't want to let go. Or we don't want to feel as if we are people who are troubled, or we are people who are struggling with something. We don't want to show that to people. But let me tell you something. There are things in our lives that we need to break apart. And is that the way that you conduct yourself? We don't want us to be told anything. We don't like it. A lot of people don't like it, right? So God uses that friend. God uses that family member telling you, hey man, you're not right. There's something's not right with you right now. You are too, self-righteous, and you're so spiritual. You say that you're so super spiritual person. We want to hear people out. In a tell this testimony, when I converted to Christ many, many years ago, I was watching a program on TV, and my son was very young. And my son, Dr. Joshua, Rivera, who's a doctor in theology, he was a very young kid. And he said, Dad, that program is no good. The TV program is no good. I didn't pay attention. God was using my little kid to speak to me. I didn't scold him. He said, hey, get out of my face, man. You're dad. You didn't tell me what to watch. So I put my head down and said, God, thank you. He was a kid to tell me that I wasn't doing something that was right. I wasn't watching a program that was good. We gotta be humble so that God can, make us useful for Him. So when we don't hear the word of God, what happens? What is happening right now? What is occurring right now is that God allows things in our lives to be able to show us what is inside of us that shouldn't be. So we are mistaken in the process of God, and we support ourselves in man's hand. But let me tell you something. In this process, God uses people in these circumstances, and whatever you're going through, perhaps it was a mistake from science. Maybe it was something that escaped from a lab. Who knows? Only God knows, right? But you know what? There's a lot of gossipers out there, and many people just say things that they don't even know what they're talking about, and they're saying things, and they say this and that. But I want to remind you of this. These people and these circumstances, God uses these things to break us down. And to break us down in the economic area of your life. Break us down where? In the physical area. In the area of relationships that we lose during these epidemics, these pandemics that we go through. And God, through these things, are bringing forth into us pain in our heart, our soul, as a reflection so that you and I will awaken. Are you there yet? We don't understand the process of brokenness. Do you know what happens? That we end up broken, discouraged, hurt, because we don't understand God's plan in our lives. And James said in chapter 1, verse 2 and 3, my brothers, consider with great joy when you fall into diverse struggles, knowing that the trial of our faith, bring forth complete work so that we are complete, that nothing we may be lacking in. Now the key word here is consider. It is a word, is in Greek, considera, how we are. Consider what is happening in your life right now. Consider what is happening in the life of others. That is so important. And in the midst of this epidemic that you are going through, I had a doctor's appointment, and they had some, checked on my leg and a lot of tests. So they finished that they had tumors, cancer in our. There was something that was growing under my knee, and doctors always say, you know what? Oh, it's cancer. It's cancer. They had other appointments. They told me, the tube to check me out. And to be brief, when the surgeon came to prepare to also go through the process of surgery, and I have this thing that it's a hey, I always praise God and everything. What I want to tell you is that he comes. Hey, I got some bad news. And I thought they were going to cut me open. The bad news, we don't find nothing. And if I don't find nothing, then I cannot operate you. And to find something, we would like to find something to be able to have surgery on you so that we can understand where this pain is coming from. So he's talking that the cancerous tumor disappeared. It appeared for a moment and disappears. It's in my right leg. What I want to tell you, a while back, there was a person that was going through this epidemic, and this doctor walked in. How are you doing? Hey, I'm here. Do you want me to pray for you? And And the doctor prayed for him. And this man says that God, it seemed like he flushed him clean and everything was gone. The epidemic, the virus was gone. I want to tell you something. I feel pain in my leg, but it's not cancer. It's not a tumor. Because when Jacob, he fought with the battle with the Lord left him lame so that disabled his leg so that he may remember that we need to depend on God. And you are feeling something and nothing appears and don't know what it is, and you always had that pain in that situation. God wants you to depend on Him because that reminds us that we are useless before God, that we cannot depend on ourselves. We cannot be self-reliant. We need to depend on God. And that is why I give glory to God in everything. Yes, at times I feel the pain. At times I don't feel the pain. It's almost like hey, I'm going to flush my body, cleanse my body. And in that cleansing, flushing my body, God took everything away from me. Because when I was in the ground, I was on the ground, bowed down before God, asking God for mercy and asking God, Lord, remember my rebellion, Lord, remember me. Do the same thing, and you will see what God is going to do for you this moment. And when you know what the Holy Spirit is doing in your life, and do you understand where God is guiding you to, you are going to learn how to dry up your tears, because God is using all the negative events of your life to be able to mold your life. I gotta say that word again. When you know what the Spirit of God is doing in your life, then you understand where God is extending you out to or taking you to. You learn to how to dry up your own tears because you know that God is using the negative events or situations of life to guide your life, deliver your life. And the poet, Hebron, and just in case I mispronounced his name, excuse me, he said this. He's a novelist, it seems. It's 10 stories. There should be something that is so sacred in the souls. There should exist something very sacred in the lives, in the souls. Is the sea, the salt in the sea, the ocean, water, and the salt in our tears. Something sacred. So it is worth the tears because there is a benefit of that brokenness because God transforms our personality. And I believe that if you continue the same way as before, even after going through this situation, I gotta drink some water right now. I believe that if you have not learned any lesson from all of this, then man, you are not a candidate for the kingdom of heaven. You are a candidate for hell. If you have not learned nothing from all of this, you have not learned to be more humble, then we are candidates of hell. We gotta learn something. We have had to go through a transformation or personality, and if you have not learned through all of this that you're going through, how to listen to God's voice, how to hear God's voice, we have not cleaned out our ears to hear God's voice, then I want to tell you about the benefits. I'm speaking about the benefits of brokenness. And now you're able to see things better. Go to get to repentance. And now we're able to live at another level. We are humble. I'm going to treat the brother who sits next to me better. I'm going to close my mouth and stop being a gossiper. I sense just a silence out there. You're not going to be a gossiper anymore. Or the person who's always, fighting or dividing churches. People who are hopping from church to church and then they justify before man with a rotten heart. And you say that you're good with doing that? It is time for us to reflect. And you don't reflect through all this you're going through, forget about it. Do not dry up your tears, because you're gonna have to, you're gonna mourn, in your pain. And you dry your own tears, then in that situation, you're going to rob yourself and be able to be glad and get up for the glory of God. Give honor to God. God knows what He was doing in your life. Hallelujah. Because God is going to sustain you in that situation. When we're able to accomplish and see what is inside of us, and we allow God to remove our own way of life, or change, and we will learn to walk with before God, and it is necessary for us to free ourselves from what is called religiosity. And there's a lot of people filled with religiosity, and a people who are filled with just religion and looking for approval from man and other people. And what we need to seek for instead is the approval from God. That everything that we do is pleasant to God and not pleasing to man. We're trying to please man, but we're not pleasing God. And this is the moment of our lives that we should search for pleasing God. And even though you're going through a period of time of brokenness, and you may feel that that emotional pain is unbearable, and it seems that you have gone through at times of hurt in your life, and instead of of giving in to the pain, ask God to reveal it to you. The Apostle Paul, he went through great tribulations. And in one situation, he says, I have prayed 3 times for this, and God has not taken it away from me. And God said to me, my grace is enough for you. He did not give up. He did not get upset because the Lord expressed these words to him, but he decided to move forward. And he understood that God will be enough for all his weaknesses, for everything he needs in his life. And I want you to listen to this. I want you to notice this. That God uses the brokenness of life to be able to get you more deeply in the relationship with him. For you to have a new perspective of the mercy of God, his grace, and that we may learn through all of this to be able to rely on God or depend on him more. That his compassion and understanding of the suffering of others, that you will be enlarged, where you will be able to understand it more in a time of trial and brokenness. Remember, these promises I'm going to tell you from God. In the book of Jeremiah, chapter 15, verse 19. What does this mean? Therefore, this is what the Lord says. If you repent, I will restore you that you may serve me. What does this mean? That in the midst of your trials and tribulations, God will guide you through them. He will free you from them. God has a purpose in mind with that brokenness you felt in your life or you're feeling. God has a purpose with it. Do not give up. Keep fighting. Keep pressing forward in the midst of the trial. God bless you. We pray that God may give strength to you and Sister Ana Lopez in Honduras. God bless you, Sister Concepcion. God bless you. We keep praying in Puerto Rico for this situation with this 5.4 quake that happened in southern Puerto Rico. The people of Puerto Rico have gone through so much with this, and we're praying for you that God may help you. Puerto Rico is being, hit very hard. Puerto Rico, please listen to God. Pay attention to God. There's something that is there. God is not done with Puerto Rico yet. You gotta wake up. We gotta wake up. Come to the Lord. And we had to pray for Puerto Rico. We had to pray for Puerto Rico so that these men and women of God, and I believe that it's idolatry in the nations, and God is working in these nations. God gives strength health to the lives of the people, to all your homes, your family. Sister Ana Lopez, be blessed this moment. Her and her family there. Sister Concepcion Nino, trusting that God is has Ivan in his hands, that God is Puerto Rico. We're going to continue um, praying for Puerto Rico. God has a big purpose for, you know, Puerto Rico. God has big purpose for this land. Let us humble ourselves before God. Let us go into the streets and let us rebuke the witchcraft, all those things that are against God, that God may operate the miracle. And there's a lot of, witchcraft and all these types of evil type of things that are happening there in the occult and all of that. We need to pray that God may break the chains in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. And you are there, you have accepted Christ as your Savior. I ask you right now, Lord, forgive me. I have failed you, and now I'm being broken by you. I done wicked things before you, evil things that I should have not done. And Lord, here I am. I'm broken. I don't feel as if, I'm succeeding in life. I feel like I'm held back. But let me tell you, God, my heart is far from you. My heart is rotten. My heart is not right. I want you to help me, God. Help me out, Lord. And David said, a heart that is contrite, that is humble before you, you will not forsake. I ask you for forgiveness, God. Help me get out from where I'm at, God. I feel so down. I need to be lifted. I need to be uplifted. And Lord God, once again, I reconcile with you, and you are doing it for the first time. Ask the Lord, write my name in the book of life as my only Savior. God bless you. Remember, don't forget the ministry, and then remember these ministry, all of the donations that may be received, is a blessing that helps this ministry, stay sharing the word of God always. And thank you for those that have donated, and we have a responsibility to preach this gospel. So you desire to give, you can do it. The information is there. How, where you can go, you can call in the donation, or you can do it online. The Lord bless you. The Lord keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. So he will put my name on your children, and I will bless them. And now our brother Sammy, Brother Edgar here. Once again, God bless you this morning. We're going to finish our Sunday service. We have some very important announcements. And I've been asked many questions about the children's service. We just started doing these last week, Wednesday. And this Wednesday, we're going to have a service beginning at 6 p.m. with Sister Gabby Lopez. And from 6 to 6:30 will be with Gabriela Lopez. And from 6:30 to 7, we have a service, a children's service, from 6:30 to 7 with Sister Veronica Rivera. So let us make sure we got all our kids there available during that time frame. And let us not forget about our kids. Our kids are there, and they also need that word. They also need it. And also, I've been asked, how can we, get and connected to these pages? You can do it on your phone, on your smartphone, or your tablet, on your laptop computer or computer desktop. So you can go straight to our, IPCC um, webpage. You can go to Facebook or our church webpage. So that way, there's so many different ways to be able to connect with us. so that we can be live and we can get connected live. Do not forget, Church of God, about the donations. Remember, don't forget about blessing God's ministry here. Remember, God bless you. That God may bless your family. That God may bless you throughout this whole week. That God, may bless your home. Bless everything, your finances, everything that surrounds you. That God may bless you. And very soon, we're gonna have some announcements about, soon. Just we're gonna know when we're going to be um, gathering again in church. So we will be letting you know when we'll be reopening the churches. So hugs to all of you, kisses to all of you. God bless you. My brother Samuel Contreras with us. God bless you.
Yo quiero más de ti y habitar en tu presencia, menguar para que crezcas tú y cada día ser más como tú. Yo quiero más de ti y habitar en tu presencia, menguar para que crezcas tú y cada día ser más como tú. Quebranta mi corazón, quebranta mi vida, te entrego mi voluntad a ti. Todo lo que soy, Señor, todo cuanto tengo es tuyo. Yo quiero menguar para que crezcas tú. Quebranta mi corazón, quebranta mi vida, te entrego mi voluntad a ti. Todo lo que soy, Señor, todo cuanto tengo es tuyo. Yo quiero menguar para que crezcas tú. Quiero menguar para que crezcas tú.